Thank you.
All right. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. Uh, Welcome to another exciting session in our Azure series. So if you remember our last series, we had a very important person who took us on Azure policy and broke it down in such a way that in governance made sense in Azure. So at the end of that session, I remember saying that this will not be the last time that we'll be gaining um, from her wealth of knowledge, from her wealth of knowledge. And clearly, I was not joking. So today we are privileged to have her with us again. And this time she'll be taking us on Azure IAM, roles and permissions. So this is one of those topics where I would say a wrong permission can feel like giving everyone the key to your house. So you know the implication of that, right? And we know. So this will be a session that we definitely do not want to miss. So, Madam Titi Lokwe Bello is deeply passionate about teaching and generous in sharing her knowledge. So, with her calm, clear, and practical style, she has a way of turning complex Azure concepts into lessons that are easy to understand and easy to apply. So, without taking more of her time, please join me in warmly welcoming Madam Titi Lokwe Bello as she takes us through Azure IAM roles and permissions. Madam Titi, you're very much welcome. Over to you, please.
All right. Thank you so much. Give me some seconds. Let me share my screen.
All right, ma'am.
Please let me know when you can see my screen.
All right, I can see the screen now.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon or good evening and good morning from wherever you're joining from. Thank you again, Holly, for the introduction, and I was happy being here last in the last session, and I'm so happy being here today, right? Because we are all learning together at the end of the day. So today's topic, as you have rightly said, is all about role assignment or roles and permission within your Azure environment, right? Uh, One role assignment or role and permission is one of the most important aspects of managing cloud when it comes to access management, when it comes to identity, when it comes to who is doing what within the environment, right? This is also sadly, right, an environment or a feature or an aspect that is often overlooked by a lot of organizations or administrators out there. And if you can understand it and then apply it within your cloud environment, is really going to help you streamline access, streamline or prevent an unauthorized access into your environment. Like Olive said, you need to be careful who you give the key to your house to, who can enter. That is majorly what role and permissions are within the Azure environment, right? Um, After this session today, at the end of this session, some of the things you'll be going away with are the having an understanding of how to access, how access control rather, how access control works in Azure, and then the different Azure identities, and then against the permissions that are available. I will try to explain, right, what Azure role-based access control concepts, right? We'll try to explain that to the best of our knowledge, right, to you. And we will show you how to assign roles and a few best practices that we must keep in mind why we are working with rules and permission within your cloud environment. And then finally, what are the ways or mistakes to avoid to prevent, unauthorized access into your environment, or what that data leakage or data spillage within your environment. Um, why, right? The first thing is, why are rules and permission? Why do they matter? Why do they matter? I've said earlier, there are this one aspect that is often overlooked, right? And if you are able to understand it, then you will also be able to apply it. Now, cloud resources are shared, and they are internet facing. That's the number one. Number one thing that powers the cloud is the fact that it is right there on the internet, and the space is a shared space. Compare an Azure environment to your standard on-premises data center. Your local data center, you have full control of it, right? You control who enters into the building, who enters into the server room where you have your racks, who you might even have things like door lock, like that's digital door lock, where somebody might need to use biometric, for instance, to get access, right? You can control what aspect of that infrastructure is exposed to the internet, or you can control how people are accessing it. But when it comes to cloud, these are things that are out of our control. Your data is right there on the internet within a shared space, right? Now, because you are within a shared space and you are there on the internet, it also means one wrong permission can cause an outage or a breach. A breach majorly will lead to outages, right? And there are different kind of ways an organization cloud environment can be breached, right? Then you have things like Azure security, and most Azure security incidents are as a result of misconfiguration, right? Human error, human error result from misconfiguration. And finally, why roles and permission matter in your Azure environment is also the fact that Azure is an identity first environment or service by design, meaning before anybody can gain access to your resources in Azure, they must verify themselves. They must authenticate, that is verifying who they are, and they must be authorized, right? That's saying, yes, you have identified them, but do they have access to access what they are asking to access? Those are a few reasons. These are a few. There are more reasons why uh, um, roles and permissions really matter within your cloud environment, cloud infrastructure. Um, let's take a look at a few real life environment or real world environment. You might have come across it, you must have heard about it, you might have even taken some of those steps at one point or the other without even realizing this is what you're doing. Take an example, a developer who deletes a production virtual machine. The fact that he's able to delete the production virtual machines means he has the right to delete it. So a permission, a certain level of permission has been assigned to, to him. So what if he doesn't have right to delete a virtual machine within your production environment? It means the permissions and the roles that they have needs to be reviewed. The second instance is an intent. If you recall, there was a there was a breach that happened by one OEM this year, and it happens that It was an intern within an environment that went to push a code to a production application, and that causes, I think it was the bridge, the downtime that happened with airlines. Yes, with airlines. It was an intern that went to push a code, right, to production application, and that affects almost all the airlines that are using that application, right? Why should an intern be having an owner role on resources, right? We have a situation where vendors keep access after projects end. This is a very real and common scenario. If you go to organizations, take survey with organizations today and ask them, after they finish a project with a vendor, that's they engage the service of a vendor, or for instance, let's say a Microsoft partner who goes to a customer's environment and deploy Azure for them. Now, vendor forgetting that this environment is not theirs, but the customer's. Now, at the end of the project, you ought to hand over the environment, inclusive of everything, including credential, everything else. But the vendor decided to keep the access just because they want to be able to either help the customer, or is actually, that's one of the examples, real life example. Then let's look at automation that failed due to missing permissions, right? Everything today is all about automation. It's all about artificial intelligence. It's all about workflow, making your work better and all of that. But a situation where you have configured certain automation to happen, you need to understand that while the automation run, it is the system account or a particular system account that is running it. You are not there as at the time that is running the flow that you have configured for it to run. So in that case, a system account is responsible for it. Does that automation flow have the necessary permission it needs to complete, to run the flow successfully? So at the end of the day, all of these rules and permissions, or all of these above, are examples of roles and permission problems that coexist or that exist within a production environment or within life environment. Now, moving on, let's talk a little bit about authentication and authorization. When it comes to your cloud environment, like I said earlier, these two these two areas or these two features are very, very important. And it's also a flow in essence. Let's say we have a user, right? A user sitting right here on the internet, this internet cloud, let's assume. And the user is sitting here, is a user here, and you have your Azure. Your Azure is hosted on the internet in one cloud here, in Microsoft Cloud, and this user want to access, right, a service here. If he open his browser and hit portal.azure.com, for instance, he will be presented with a login page, right? Your cloud environment should be able to ask the user, who are you? Okay, he asks, who are you? And the user, by presenting the username and password page to the user, then the user will enter his user ID and a password. Then your identity service management in Azure, which is Entra ID in this case now, we look at this information, the user ID and password that this user has supplied. It will look at it and verify that this user exists within its own managed environment, right? The moment the user exists, it allows the user to authenticate. Now, user is in. The question is now, what can the user do? So authorization is a matter of what, right? A matter of what. What can the user do? That's the next question. Then the identity service Entra ID look into itself and say, okay, we have this user. Whenever this user comes in, what is he expected to access? What's his role? Check. Does he have any role? Oh, the role is a global administrator. The user have full access to the entire environment. If you look and say, oh, the user is just a user, right? No other thing, just a user. What it's going to do is to say, as a user, what are you allowed to access? So if you look at it, once it's able to validate what the user is allowed to access, then it grants the role and permissions. It grants permission based on the role. It grants permission to that resource automatically. And there's a third one of it. There's authentication, authorization, and there's a third one that is called accounting, right? Accounting. Accounting is now based on the user has been authorized to access this. What did he access? Where did he branch? Which door did he open? Accounting will help you to take records of all of that. And that is what is presenting you, providing you what's presented rather in the audit log. When you go to your cloud environment and check the audit log, you can see a user and see what they have done, right, within your environment. That is where authentication and authorization, that's how they function when it comes to role and um, role and permission within your Entra environment. Uh, okay, I thought maybe someone wanted to ask a question. So moving on, I said earlier, Azure, accessing Azure or cloud environment is all about identity. It's all about verifying, identifying, verifying, and authorizing, right? And the solution or the service that is responsible for that within your Azure environment is the Microsoft Entra ID. It used to be called before, we are used to maybe Azure AD, pardon my writing, Azure AD, right? That's the old name, formerly known as Azure AD. Now what is called Entra ID, right? It's even here, Azure AD. Now, in this Entra ID manage the entire identity, permission, roles, users, group within your cloud environment. So let's say, for example, you have a new user in your environment, a new developer who need to gain access to your cloud environment to develop this app and publish or deploy it, right? You will need to go into Entra ID to create a user for that developer, right? After creating the user, you can assign him a developer role, right? That is how you manage identity, or that's how identity came into play. Now, there's also a possibility that you have a group of IT personnel or a group of users that does this similar role. For instance, you have more than one developer in the environment, and each of them are They need access to the same resource. Um, they are working on the same project, for instance. You will want to create a group, right? You create a group and add these individual developers into that group. Then you can assign permission to the group, or you assign permission to individual. There's also what we call service principal when it comes to Entra ID. Service principals are apps. So let's say, for instance, you develop, while developing your app, through your own authentication, your Azure AD is able to create a little service account, right, within your application, and you give access. But who is using that is majorly apps that are using service principal. It's not an account that a user can use to authenticate. And finally, we have what we call managed identity. Managed identity is a situation, or it comes to play in a situation where you have an on-premise Active Directory, right? In your on-premise Active Directory, you have that on ground. Let me clean this because it's becoming messy. Okay. So you have your on-premise Active Directory, and you want a situation whereby when you create a user on the on-prem Active Directory, it's sync a copy of that user to your Entra ID without you going to Entra ID and go and create that same user again. So that is where managed identity comes from, where you have to link, you integrate the Entra ID with your on-premises Active Directory, and you have what we call managed identities. Everything accessing Azure one way or the other have an identity, because you cannot access Azure's resource without telling Azure or Entra ID who you are first, right? That is how best I think I can quickly explain how Entra ID comes in. Now, how we manage uh, permissions and roles, right? For resources in Azure is called access control. And access control have types, right? They have types and different places for you to manage them, right? One of the access control type that we have is called Azure RBAC, that is role-based access control. Role-based access control. What does this mean? It is access that is granted, access and permission that is granted based on your role as an individual, right? For instance, I say again, you are a developer. For you to work in Azure, you need developer role or developer role or application administrator role or coder role. There are different roles that have to do with developer, right? So based on that, you will not be able to do anything beyond just the tasks that a developer can perform or complete within the Azure environment. Another one is what we call Entra ID role. This is what we call directory level access, right? Directory level access. So this is not based on your role as a developer. This is based on uh, who can access the directory, who can access Entra ID, for example, a global administrator, right? If you that is those are directory access rule or directory level rule. Global administrator can access everything within the cloud, within the Entra ID, not Azure subscription, but everything identity global administrator can access. You have some other administrator type. You have maybe user administrator. Such a user administrator, the few things that account can do is to create user, delete user, assign licenses to user, update user account, but it cannot reset, it can reset password for users, but cannot reset the password of a global administrator account because that account have a role or permission that is way, way higher than a user administrator permission, right? Then we have resource specific permissions, right? These have to do with, for example, we have Azure subscriptions. The Azure subscription here, there are resource groups. Within the resource group, there are resources that have been created, e.g., a virtual machine. You can also go into the virtual machine. So permission assignment can be that granular, where you go into the resource itself and assign the access or permission to the user you want to manage just that resource. And the user, even when he log in, is able to see the subscription, he cannot see beyond the resource you have given him access to, which is the virtual machine. So he will be able to manage the virtual machine. But anything outside of that virtual machine, he will not be able to do. So, but today, we are going to be focusing on role-based access control. That's what we'll be focusing on. So now, let's talk a little bit about RBAC, right? As RBAC, role-based access control, what it does is it allows you to decide, or any administrator who is managing a cloud to decide who has access to what, right? It can decide rather what can they do with the access they have, and finally, where can they do that task that they have access to complete. So that's majorly on a simple explanation is what RBAC is about or what it means, right? Again, RBAC is going to is actually going to help an administrator to know who has access to what and where. That is majorly what this slide is talking about. Okay, so moving on, let's look at RBAC, call it RBAC building block, right? The RBAC building block, let's think about RBAC like a sentence. A sentence where user A has row B at scope C. User A, we are taking A now as a user, B is the row, and C is the scope. We'll talk about the scope a little bit, right? So RBAC have a few things that you have to keep in mind when you are, just like the example I gave now. We have a user. The user is assigned a particular role, and based on that role, user can perform certain tasks. Will he perform the task on just a resource? Is he able to perform the task on tenant level? Or is he able to perform the task on a whole resource group level? Right. So we have security principle. Accounts in the cloud, they are called security principle. Security principle is a matter of who is this that need access? And role definition have to be what role, what access, what permission does it have? And the scope is now where. Now let's take this scope. Let me break it down a little. Let me break this down a little. When it comes to scope now, we are talking about let's say for instance, the security at your gate. The security at your gate have access, or he has permission to allow people in and out of the gate or of the compound, right? That security can be able to walk around the compound, right? He have access to outside of the building. He might have access to certain parts of the house, maybe like the kitchen where he picks up his food from, maybe. Uh, but maybe even sitting room, but might not be able to go beyond the sitting room, right? The fact that he's able to move from one point to the other, but some areas are restricted. That is that scope, what it means. Then the role assignment. Role assignment now is the first thing is we have defined a user. We have defined what role we want to assign to this user. We have defined where the role to apply from. But we need to now tie the role to the user that we have identified. That is what we call role assignment. These are the building blocks of role-based access control within your Azure environment. Now, when it comes to Azure role or role-based access control, there are built-in roles and there are custom rules, right? Built-in roles are custom rules. These are a few most common rules that you can see in your Azure environment. Most common rule, Azure rules, you have the owner rule, you have the contributor rule, you have the reader rule, and you have the user access administrator rule, right? One of the role that is often overused or overutilized is the owner rule. And this is also a number one mistake that must be avoided. Remember the case of the intern. You are assigning an owner role to a virtual machine to an intern. And this virtual machine is a production virtual machine, for instance. So if it does anything like deleting the VM, that's a mistake. And the mistake was as a result of assigning too much or role with too much or so much permission to the user, the owner role, right? Now, let's compare some of these rules. These are just a few. Let's compare them, owners, contributors, and readers, right? Anyone you assign readers to, what they have access to is just to view that resource, only view only. They cannot make any change. They can't adjust anything. They can't delete. They can't edit. They can't add. They can only view. That is the permission that is assigned to reader role. So there are so many reader roles within the Azure. You might see things like security reader, you might see things like virtual machine reader, you might see services like directory reader, anything reader, they can only view, they cannot make any change. Then we have the contributor. The contributor role has to do with you have access to they have access to manage resource beyond viewing, right? They can add, they can delete, they can edit, they can create new, right? They can even assign permission, lower permission to other users within the environment. That is contributor role. Just like the word contribute, contribute your own opinion, contribute your part of the task, right? That is contributor role. Then you have the owner role. Here, the owner role, like I said, have the full access and is able to assign roles, including owner role, to other users, right? Role, um, uh, um, when it comes to owner role, like I said, it's something that is often used when the assignee does not really require it, right? And owner does not necessarily mean somebody that performs the daily operation, or it does not equate daily operation role. It might be too much for the role or for the reason that it is being assigned. But unfortunately, that is what a lot of people they felt this is quick, it will not stop anything. Let me just go ahead and give him this one so that it doesn't have any blocker anywhere to do whatever I want to do. But it is often very dangerous, right? Now we talk about built-in rules here. There are also custom rules. You can create custom rules. There are situations where the built-in rules might not have adequate permissions that you need, or might have too much than you need. So in that case, you will create a customized role and assign to the in identity that you need to have that role. Now let's talk a little bit more about scope levels when it comes to role. Um, One thing you need to pay attention to is the fact that permissions travel from top to bottom. So it's a top to bottom application approach for permission. In your cloud environment, in your Azure environment or tenant, you have the tenants, right? Under the tenant, we talk a little bit about management group. There's a management group, or you can create different management group, but there's a default one at the tenant level. So meaning everyone you assign role to at this level have access and control over everything else within the tenant, right? Then you have subscription level. Remember last week we talked about a situation where we have different departments and we created management group for different departments. Then under different management group, based on the department, we created subscriptions for them. Those that are developer, those that are sales that needed a subscription for just the production. Those that are IT that needed subscription for production and then lab environment. Then the developer have access to development subscription and production subscription, right? So at different management level, management group level, you can create subscription. Any role that you have signed on the subscription level does not cannot travel up, it travels down, and we call that inheritance. If I assign an owner role to a subscription, that identity, because of the owner role, can manage every single thing within that subscription, right? And then, like I said again, the permission flows downward from top to bottom, from highest to lowest. Let's look at another slide to look at this very well. So again, look at this level. These are management group level. In this case now, there might be multiple management groups, right? And we have different subscription that is assigned to different management group. Any permission that we assign at the management group level is going to travel all the way down, right? Permission assigned at the subscription level is going to travel down the resources. While permission assigned at the resource group level is going to travel down to resource level. Permission assigned at this level will only remain at the individual resource that that permission is assigned to. So that is the way scoping work with role-based access control in your Azure environment. Okay, so again, quickly, just to reiterate the inheritance. If we assign a permission again at the management level, it's going to, the identity will be able to manage everything all the way, right? And if we assign at at the um at the subscription level, it will apply to all resource group under that subscription and automatically all resources within any resource group under the subscription. If we assign at the subscription group, resource group level, it travel down only within, it is only within that resource group. There are, even though there are multiple resource group in Azure, it does not go outside of the resource group that you have. For instance, you have resource group 1 or RG1, RG2, RG3. You assign user 1 permission on RG1. His permission will never travel down to RG2 and 3 because they are individual resource group, right? And 3, the RBAC introduced what we call least privilege, right? It's should I say introduce or embrace, right? The least privilege access uh, 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 flow or concept, right? Yes, concept, and it travels again with starting with lowest. Lowest means assign on the resource level, and the user will only be able to assign and be manage that resource. If you assign on the resource group level, user will go manage the resource group, manage everything within it, right? That is how inheritance flow. Now, this is still, I think, this is still, yes, this role-based assignment flow. Now, remember we talked about when we talked about the components, the components of RBAC, right? One of the things we said is we need an identity, which is a user. We need a role that the user needs to be assigned. We need um, scope, at what level are we assigning it? And then we now need to tie, right? That permission, we need to tie it to a user. That is what is called assignment. If you create a role without assigning it to anybody, you have just created that role. It's not useful until it is assigned to an identity, right? So I think I've talked about common mistakes in the case where you assign owner permission. Too many owner permissions are assigned within the cloud environment, which is a dangerous move. It's dangerous in the sense that because attacker realize you have the owner role, they can attack or they can breach the cloud environment with your own permission that is owner because you have a superpower on those resources you have access to. Assigning roles at subscription level is also another common mistake. When you assign owner role at the subscription level, that is giving that individual too much power on the subscription. So if I give a developer owner role on the subscription level, what it means is the developer can create resources of any amount that he wants to without paying any attention. Remember last week when we talked about Azure policy, we said we could use Azure policy to limit maybe location or cost, maximum amount of resource, or the resource skill, that's SKU, that developers can create when they are creating their resources or that they should target. So if you assign owner role to a user at the subscription level, you are also giving them too much power, right? These are common mistakes. Assigning roles directly to user, right? In Azure, there is what they call privileged identity management, PIM. What does PIM do, right? PIM allow you to assign permission to a user and configure it in such a way that that permission expires once the user has completed the tasks that you need to complete. But a lot of the time, administrator just assign role directly to the user instead of using PIM, right? Of going the identity governance approach, which is using PIM, privileged identity management. If you do, if you use PIM to assign role to a user in Azure, you can say the user can only have that role at a particular time, right? And it will expire maybe in a day, in a month. Let's say there's a project, you can use that. You say, okay, the project is going to last for 2 months. Then you create a PIM or give user access through PIM and say that role to expire exactly 2 months. If they need to extend it, they will make another request. Again, even while using PIM to assign permissions and role to users, you have the ability to say that users will only activate the role whenever they need to perform the tasks that require the role. And you will force them to give what you call justification for activating that role at the time when they activated the role. We will see how it works shortly in the demo, right? And the last mistake or common mistake that we have is no regular access review. This is a situation where you have an IT or someone in IT before who had access or some roles and permission to certain aspects of your cloud infrastructure. Now, this user has moved from IT administrator role to a developer role. He shouldn't have the same access that he was having before when he was an administrator. He shouldn't have that same access while he has moved to a developer. You need to you somebody have to be responsible to review the roles and accesses regularly and identify when a user no longer needs that such access so that such access and permission can be revoked in a timely manner. Now, a few best practices before we go into them, right? Uh, Always use what we call principle of least privilege. What does this mean? If a user does not need uh, uh, if a user does not need to have an owner role, you should not give him owner role. For instance, let's take something that is very common. We have users and an organization have departments, they have IT, they have sales, they have HR, they have marketing, they have maybe security, right? Now, the security personnel might need reader access roles to the entire tenant so that it can be able to see when alerts are being generated that you need to take account or take control of, right? But in addition to the general or the total reader directory reader role or tenant-wide reader access, you might need to give him certain security permission. Now, there's possibility that one person in the security unit or security department only work on in team. There is also possibility that another person only work on databases, database security. So you need to ensure that a vulnerability check is run every time and all other time. Another person might be there who need to ensure that purview, settings within purview are in place. So because not all of them need the global security role, they need one need access to identity in tune. So that way you will apply the least privileged access by assigning that user just in tune administrator, right? Then use groups, not users. Groups. So it means create group for different roles. Security groups. When you create security groups for different purposes, you can assign users into those groups. And the permission you assign it on the group. So anytime you remove a user from that group, a user no longer belongs to that group, you remove them, it automatically remove their permissions and privileges that you have assigned to them, right? Then again, separate production from non-production access. This have to do a lot of time with developers, right? There should be different role or permission assigned at production level, a different role assigned at non-production level. Then ensure that there is regular access review. And finally, always start with the list reader that give them just read only access and let your people or the concerned person request for more when you realize they cannot do what they needed to do, right? Those are a few best practices that we should keep in mind as we assign roles and permissions within the Azure environment. So now let's quickly look at a few demos, right? So I have an environment here, my Azure environment, and we are going to look at a few different uh, uh, scenarios. We talked about the permission assigned at tenant level or directory level, right? Directory level, we can go into Entra. This is Entra, right? I'm going into Entra just to quickly show us directory level. So in Entra, we have all these roles. And you can see here, it's saying my role is a global administrator. And I also have one other role, right? Like I said, global administrator is the most powerful account within an environment. And if you look down here, you will see that the role type here, majority here are built-in roles. Anyone that you create, right, that did not come with the system, they are custom roles. Now, each role that we have here have their own description. Let's look at this. Application developer. If we pick this application developer, see what it can do? It can create application registration independent of the user can register application setting. This is a setting in the Entra ID. If you enable this, user can register application. The user will be able to, even if you disable this right, because you have assigned application developer, the user will be able to register an app, right? This one is called attack simulation administrator. So it means this is for a security role, or security personnel role, for instance. It means this person, all he can do is to create and manage campaigns, right? Manage campaign within an organization. That's to simulate an attack, to send a message, for instance, to the entire organization and say, oh, you have a parcel, click this link to get your parcel. And they want to, why are they doing this? Is to know who is going to fall victim. who is the person that like gifts so much when you did not order for something and it says to click link to get your parcel and you click without you ordering anything of such. So these are a few built-in rules. These rules, let's say for instance, let's open one of them. Open one of them. Now this one says authentication administrator can access view, set and reset authentication method for information, but I won't use that. I think we should go back to the application administrator. This application administrator. This one can create and manage all aspects of application registration and enterprise admin. So if I open this up, what can we do with it? What we can do here is to assign this role to an individual, right? We can assign this role to an individual. You will notice that there is no option for us to edit the role because it came with the system. Right? Let's look at the setting of the role. Right. Looking at the setting, say maximum activation allowed. If you give this role to somebody in what we call eligibility mode, it means the user can activate it at a time for a maximum of 8 hours. If you need to go beyond that, once that first 8 hour elapsed, you need to create another activation, right? So these are the few settings that we have here. And um, yes, these are settings. And you, like I said again, you will notice you cannot edit because it's a system rule, right? That have come into this, that has been created by Microsoft. You can check the description. The description is just telling you what the role will do, and then the ID and the individual or specific roles that has been assigned to this particular, or permissions rather, that have been assigned to this particular role. Let's see a few of the permissions. Right, we have read and configure Azure Service Edge, create and manage Azure support tickets. So anybody that have this role, if they're having issue with their application, they will be able to create tickets within Azure, support ticket with Microsoft, right? You can create application policy, you can delete application policy, you can read owners on application policy, right? But you will not be able to assign owner, right? This is an example of a built-in role within the Entra ID. So you will see some roles like we talk about reader. This only have read permission. That's read the provisioning configuration. You cannot edit. You can't do anything. Anything reader, log reader, provisioning reader, definition reader, assignment reader, everything reader you can only view. This directory reader, see what it can do. Can read basic directory information commonly used to grant directory read access to applications and guests, right? That's it. So if you see, going further, these are all at the Entra ID level, right? See this? Dynamics. So if somebody is a Dynamics administrator, we have one of these Dynamics rules. The Exchange, right? These are Microsoft Exchange. So these are default rules that have been created based on the role of a user within an organization. The SharePoint, Teams administrator, or the role for team. You have teams for device administrator for anybody that is managing in team, right? So now let's look at quickly how we can assign a directory role to a user, right? Even going back to that role, that location, all roles, right? When you log into your portal, you go to all roles, and here I can select Let's pick direct compliance administrator or directory reader. Let's pick this directory reader. If you notice here, it already have one assignment. If we scroll back up, it is assignment, right? Let's do it this way so that I can show. It is assignment, okay, assignment. So that directory reader currently is assigned to one user within this environment. So let's open it up. Okay. So, okay, you see the assignment type is a service principal. This is an application. And what is this application? Sync, Azure Sync Fabric. It's not a user, it's an application, right? So if we want to assign this role that has been created, we just want to assign it to a user, we can click this add assignment. When you click add assignment, open this blade for you, and you can add all the properties, right? So the first thing again is to select the row, right? Sorry, we have selected the row, that's reader. Then the next thing is scope. Because of the role that this is directory reader. This is the entire directory within Azure. So we cannot change it. That's the scope. So it means it's at the management group, the tenant level. That's where this is coming from. Now we need to assign it to a particular user. Let's select our user. And once you click like that, search for either a user or a group. And assign it to a group. If you have security group that has been created, as we said, always assign to group, right? But we do not have one now. Let's assign to user. We assign to Bruce Lee, right? And you can assign, it's a checkbox, you can check multiple user, but it's just Bruce Lee that needs to read the directory currently. So it has selected our user, and then we can click next. Now here, you have assignment type. Is it eligibility or is it active? When you make it active, it means it will activate immediately for the user, right? And you now have other options that says permanently assigned. Now uncheck this. Once you uncheck this, it means it's not permanent. You want it activated immediately. It's not a permanent role, it's a temporary role. Then you need to set from when to when. Maybe from today, this role should be active for Bruce Lee from between today and there's a project that is working on and going to end in February, right? End of February. So you can put it like this. So it will start at this time that we are assigning and end at this time on this date, right? And I have to put a justification. You see that it's compulsory because why is it compulsory? Because I'm activating it immediately, right? So I need to give a justification why I'm assigning it directly instead of making him to be the one to activate it. Now, let's select the eligibility option and see what we have. If I select eligible, what it means is the role is available for the user to activate whenever he needs it. But that role will not automatically be given to him. He must make an attempt by himself to go and activate it for it to be enabled and be given to him. This the same way we can make it permanent eligibility or start from a time and end at a particular time. Same thing apply. So what we will do is to assign in eligibility role mode, right? From today, I want it to take effect to last December 31st. No, sorry. Not this 2026. We need to come back to December 2025, right? So we need it to expire by December 21st this year. By that time, the project, in fact, that's the last day, the last handover day. So we click assign. What it means is, like I said, for Bruce Lee to have this role, you need to log into portal or entra.microsoft.com, go to with his own credential, then you go to my role. So let me I've assigned this role. If this user, what's the name? Bruce Lee need to activate the role. When he log in to entra.microsoft.com, he goes to his account. Let's go to home. Because it's a standard user. Me, I'm an administrator. I can see all this. But if we go select users, for instance, we will be able to see himself as a user, and we will be able to see a tab here that is called my role, right? You will see my role. See view account. The account, if you can see that. Okay, it's taking a while. Okay, so let's continue. If that's open, I'll go back there. Now, that is Entra rule. What happens if I want to assign a role at a subscription level, right? I have this subscription. You might have multiple subscriptions. If I come to this subscription, select it, I will go to the section called access control. This segment is where you control access to this particular subscription from. And remember, this is subscription level. It has access control tab where we can assign access, right, to anybody, be able to manage this subscription. So all we need to do is to come here under role assignment. You can click add and say add role assignment. And when we select this, it's going to open similar blade like we have the other time, right? It's going to open that for us. Okay, I guess this is my internet now that is giving us this now. Okay, fresh. Okay, while this has opened, let me see if I can see what I'm looking for here. My access, my app, my account. I'm looking for the my role segment. It's not here. Okay, I will revisit that. Okay, so here now, we want to assign a role at the subscription level in user, right? Just for us to test that out, I'm going to quickly log in. Know what my mouse is really. See what's up. Okay, so I have this here. Can do portal.azure.com. Wow. Okay. Nothing is typing. Okay. I don't know what something is happening with my mouse, but I think I will just continue with this. So now this trying to add a row under a subscription, right? And if you come to add role assignment, you have two tabs. One is based on job function rule. Look at them and you notice they are all built-in rows, right? Check this column. And look at reader. You have the reader can view all resources, but is not allowed to make any change, right? Let's look at some that are very descriptive. Advisor, that's Azure Advisor recommendation. User can view assessment recommendations, accept review recommendation, and manage right recommendations. So you have the different one. Whether the person will be managing API, have the different API rules that has been created that you can assign to your users, right? Now, if you don't want to assign that, there's what they call privileged administrator rule. Let's go there. So under privileged administrator rule, that is where you have the owner, contributor, the access review, all of these other rules. See that they are few. They have more power than any role within the job function rule here, right? So we can select this and assign contributor role on the subscription to the user that we're talking about here. To assign the role, we have selected the role as contributor and we'll click next. The next thing is to select who is it that we want to assign it to. We are going to select a member. Assign access to who, right? This is the role. Contributor, assign access to who. We want to select either a user, group, or a service principal, right? To now select the member, user, click member. We have done similar thing just now for uh, Bruce Lee. Then we search again. Let's give Bruce Lee again the access and it's selected and we'll click select. See that it has selected Bruce Lee for this access. You can add description if you want. Then we'll click next. So in the next, it give us again similar page that we have seen, assignment type. You can assign in eligibility mode, which is the recommended mode. So member must activate to use this role for a limited period of time, which the maximum time allowed at a time, at a point of activation is 8 hours at a time. And you can select to choose, make it, assign it automatically and make it active immediately, right? We can make it permanent or we make it time bound again. If you were following, you see that it is similar. So we'll just leave this time bound, but even though it's long, let's leave it as it is. And yeah, it's saying we should use PIM policy instead of just direct assignment like that. So, but with this also, we have assigned is going to stop, is going to remove the permission on this date at this time, right? So we'll leave it as that and click next. This is just like a brief of what we have just configured and we'll click review and assign. So we're assigning role to Bruce Willis. Okay. So while that is configured, or while that is being configured or running, um, one other thing we can go do is to go back into our subscription. Now, we want to assign the role to a user, another user, on a resource group level. This is our subscription. We are going into resource group. We have a resource group that we have created called AZ series, right? Let me open up the resource group. You will notice, just like the subscription, we also have the access control, which is called IAM. That's Identity and Access Management. We have it here as well. And we can go through the same approach. This time, let's assign developer role to just or application administrator role to just a user to another user. Right? And while this is loading, internet is becoming slow. Let me open this in another place. So now, same thing, same similar, but like I said this time, we are going to assign job function role instead. Let's search for it. Developer. I don't know, something is going on with my mouse and keyboard. Where I'm typing is not responding, responding somewhere else. Okay. So I guess I have to just scroll. Let's pick application. Oh, okay, we can pick Azure AI developer or Azure AI administrator. Right. This one has all control, right? Control pane permission to work with Azure AI. So let's select this and we click next. Then we select a user again. And this time select a user. So again, let's pick David. Pick David Rome this time and we'll select. Then go next and leave it as active again. Half time we'll have done. Then we can make it permanent. And we'll go next. Then we create. This is at the development of the subscription level. So David be able to manage AI resources, all AI resources within this subscription alone. Within this subscription alone. Sorry, this resource group. It cannot create AI resource outside of this resource group. It can only create inside this resource group. Now, let's go into resources. Let's say, for instance, we have resources that are created in this resource group, right? Well, okay. Resources now. I don't think I have anything here. Microsoft is updating Azure every time. So, I need to sign in. Let me quickly close and relaunch the browser. I'm unable to control anything. Just a
All right, Ma,
moment.
can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay, it seems that we are not seeing your screen. It's just black.
Yes, yes, yes. I want to
Is it because of
quickly.
your relaunching? Okay.
Yes, yes, I'm relaunching. Mm. Wow. I think that I press something that is causing this. It's looking like relaunch will not do. Let me see what we can do. I will cut this part out. How many minutes do we kind of have left? Let me see if I can quickly restart my computer. Hello?
Can you hear me? We don't have
Yes,
much minutes. Let me just say it's like 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay,
Yes,
it's
ma.
just to kind of round up then. I don't know what's happening. My screen is.
So sorry about
Since we
that.
didn't start early, that's why I was also thinking we will have more time. But it's fine. Okay, let me try again. Start with the. Oh wow. Um, what will
Okay, seems it's
happen
still not
this
working.
because yes, it's not working. I'm pressing. I'm actually typing on my keyboard. It's not working. I'm trying to click, just click, and it's something else. You see this download. That's what is coming in. So I might need to
Oh.
restart my system. I don't know why. What is going on? That's it. So nothing is
Okay, we can
responding again.
actually
Let me
give
try
you
restart.
few more minutes. We can actually give you a few more
Okay.
minutes, ma.
Okay. Let me quickly
Yes, ma.
uh, rebounce my laptop. I'll join back shortly.
All right then. Thank you, ma. We'll be waiting.
Okay.
All right, everyone, please let's hold on for a few minutes for her to restart and rejoin us so she can round off, please. Thank you very much for your patience. Thank you for your time so far. Welcome back, Madam Titi.
Yes, I'm back. Just to do a roundup, let me.
Yeah.
I'm sharing my screen again. Have you? Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma, I can see your screen.
All right. So, I've been able. Well, we have been able to. Were we able to assign on the resource level? Let's go back to subscription, and then we go to resources. Right. In the resources, by um, these are resources. We have this storage account resource within this resource group, right? So let's go into the resource group, resource itself. So we are currently in the storage account, and if you look again, you will see access control IAM here again. That's to tell you you can start from the list and travel up if you want to. So here again, we'll go to role assignment. See something now. The role assignment, because we assign somebody access at the subscription level, we automatically will see his name here as one of the person that have access to see. And because we also assign permission to another person at this resource group level, we will see it here, right? The only thing is the permission we assigned here was AI, have to do with AI. But yes, is here. Storage is still part of AI, right? And we see, can see David here is having access to this resource, and we can see Bruce is having access to this resource. Bruce is coming from the subscription level. Look at it, inheritance. And David is coming from resource group level. That's inheritance. So now we want to assign another person. This can only assign add role assignment. We want to assign somebody access to this resource, to the storage resource or storage account, right? Only. And we're going to click storage. Let me look for storage. Anything storage. We're on the job function tab. It's taking quite a while. Scroll if I can see. Azure storage container. Okay. Just for us to stay within the time, I'm going to clear this and let's try to go to this moving. Yeah, moving this way. We'll go to S, which is W, S. Okay. So we can select storage, uh, storage account contributor or storage key and storage data owner or reader. Let's select this job reader and we click next. Select a user that we want to assign this role to. Again, this time we'll pick Emma. Select Emma and we'll click next. And here is having, that's one thing. When you select job function permission, you need to assign a condition. Right. So let's add condition and say, so although it's not compulsory, right? But can assign a condition, but let's not make it complicated. Now maybe we'll treat it another time to treat that. So let's leave it as condition has been assigned, and then we can click next, review, and assign. No condition is assigned. So it's already applying. and it has applied. So we didn't put any condition. It means they have full access if this storage is a blob storage. So you see this user now, and can you see what he's saying? Just these resources, this resource. You go anywhere else, like you can see at the tenant level, you will see on the subscription, you will see this. So here you are only seeing just this resource. That is how to apply role and permission in such a way that it does not give too much right or too much permission to a user and does not give less of what they need. It's even better to have less while they request for more if it's needed, and then you can apply it with justification. Again, we also said it's very important to keep it at uh, one least privilege assigned to group, that's two, and then always use PIM to assign so that you can assign time and even access review policy to it. Then always configure access review. And this has brought us to the end of this particular session today. If you have any question, I will be willing to answer them. Oli, over to you.
All right, Ma. Thank you very much, Ma, for today's session. Thank you very much. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Yes, please, Ajayi,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Ma, for this really, really insight. So my question is certification. That's
Okay, I
Sorry,
didn't get you.
we lost you.
We lost you for a second. Please, can you repeat your question?
You can type it. If you can type it so that we treat it. Ah, oh, you can type.
Seems it's having network issues.
yeah, sorry, I'm having network issues.
Oh, sorry
Okay,
about
clear
that.
now.
Okay, but it's better now. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you. It's better.
So you were mentioning something about justification. So when you mean that the user that has been assigned the needs to justify or why he needs to have access to it, who defines that justification? Is it that there will be a pre is it that there's a word or there's something the user needs to put in to justify what he needs to have access to, which must be similar to what the admin has actually put in place. So I just want to understand that part. I don't know whether you understand the question.
Yeah, so justify. If you notice the time when we were creating, uh, when we're assigning a role to somebody, and then because we say it should be active, it still has to justify the reason why I'm making it active. The reason is because me, I've already set it as active. The user will not need to activate it, but somebody needs to be able to know the reason why he has that right. And that is why it's asking the administrator to put a justification, right, for activating that role for the user immediately. Now, the other aspect is where a user is allowed to activate the role by themselves. I wanted to try and see if I could get there, activate the role. Let me see my other browser. Uh, Entra, entra.microsoft.com. Let me just quickly show you a situation where a user is now the one. So while the user is justifying themselves, it's not something that administrator have created. Based on the settings that has been configured for that role, for each role, the moment you click justify, there's a flow that apply the user must justify the need why they are the reason they're activating that rule right before they can activate it. The user account, just a moment, let me get that user again. And the user is I think that was Bruce, right? Set Bruce to be able to activate at some point. See, I remember his password. I just quickly reset it. Mm, okay, so I have this password for this user. I'm going to go to the other browser. It's better when you see it in action. You're able to password somewhere. Starting again. Ah, starting again. See to see. Okay, it's not moving, it's not working. I can't restart system again. But what happened is this user needs to go to entra.microsoft.com, and under his own account, he will see my roles. Or if you go to you see assigned roles. Let me go here. To respond. Assigned role to this user now. We're on Bruce Lee. Now Bruce Lee in active mode does not have any role assigned to it. In eligibility mode, it has reader role. If you want to, if by the time you log in as his own self, you will see this button. Me as admin, I'm seeing it as remove here. What you will see is activate. Then he will click the activate. Then the system is going to ask him for how long, what date and when does he need it activated. He has option to select custom standard time, which is 8 hours, or custom time. If you want to reduce it, reduce the 8 hours, but you cannot extend it beyond 8 hours. Now, before you could complete the activate button, there's a justification button that will open and it's compulsory. So we say justify or put an information of the reason why you need to activate this rule. So the user can put, I'm activating the role because I need to review security or so and so. In order to, you can put a lot of information, like elaborated information, or even the information you want to get. Why does it need it? Maybe auditor, maybe audit is going on, and you need to be able to show auditor a lot of those things. You can put that justification there. So the moment you click eligible for a user to activate, the system, Microsoft have already configured the system, created a flow that the user must say the reason why he or she is activating that role, right? But beyond that, they cannot assign the role to themselves unless an administrator have assigned the role to them in eligibility mode. However, if it is a role that is assigned to them, let's pick the other guy, David. David was not assigned, and David was direct. See, David Rome, no, I think it's David Rome. David Rome was direct assignment, doesn't need to activate. So go to, I think that means it's eligible with it for him too, Oh, okay. I get it. It doesn't have the role on the subscription level, or is it the wrong person? Let me check. It's one of the David. One of the David, and active, nothing, eligible, nothing as well. Something is wrong. But we're supposed to be able to see. If you have eligible role, we see it here. If you activate it, actually, it will come under active. For the account, because it's active for anybody, you will see it as active assignment, right? I don't know why it's not showing. However, just to answer your question, the simple answer is the system already configured the flow or automate the flow in such a way that when a user activates a role, it tells the user to put justification of why they're activating. Does that answer your question? Hello, Shola.
Yes, very well. Because I was thinking maybe there's a predefined statement regarding the job, but based on what you said, okay, thank you.
So there's no predefined. However, you can actually send a message to the user, right? So let me go back to row. That started again. Okay, so in the row, while you are assigning the row in eligibility mode, you will see also a box that says give a custom message to the user. But that custom message is more of telling them you must assign a row. If you don't assign the row, like I created one sometime ago, I said you are not able to create your resource or activate this row without a justification. Right? You can create a custom message to the user, but that flow is already there by default.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for that.
All right, thank you very much, Ma, for answering that question. So do we have any other question? All right. So thank you very much once again for this insightful session. Thank you for breaking down this Azure RBAC from who has access to what they have access to and where the scope where they can apply this access to also practically showing us how to assign roles to whether from subscription level, resource group level, or resource. Thank you very, very much, Ma, because I believe each and every one of us learned a lot from you. So please, everyone listening, you can subscribe to her channel, and also you can follow her on LinkedIn with the name Titi Lokwe Bello. So thank you very much for joining, everyone, and to have a very, very lovely day.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and do have a
Right.
nice day.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Nice to have you.
Yeah. Bye.